Welcome. In this video, I will talk about how to use voice assistant to collect user feedback from machine learning systems. I'm Xiao. This is a joint work with Sarah, Bernd, Adam, and Ziang. Voice assistants nowadays deliver more diverse and more personalized content through recommender systems. Recommending the right content to a user at the right time is a hard challenge. Even though user's requests might be the same, the right answer might be completely different. For example, the user wants different music with the exact same request in the above two scenarios. Therefore, the recommender system needs to closely understand what a given user wants in a given context while keeping user privacy top of mind. To learn what might be a good recommendation, the system relies on user feedback. Asking users directly about their actions could provide rich information to the system builders to understand the user's real intents and preferences. Such user feedback is called explicit user feedback. Collecting such feedback in the place and in the moment in which the interaction of interest occurs is particularly useful. It captures user preferences in a more direct and granular way. It informs the model performance through user perspectives. It avoids introducing a memory bias when asking users to recall their impression on past interaction. Having access to rich contextual information can help system builders to improve recommender systems by tailoring content to specific contexts. Although collecting explicit user feedback have a big impact on future recommendations, it is not easy to collect through voice. First, the lack of visual affordances on voice interfaces limits the system ability to prompt for user feedback. This invisible nature of voice commands makes it difficult for a user to even know about the option to provide feedback. Second, the voice assistant must interrupt an ongoing interaction to ask for feedback, which may be considered as intrusive and hurt the user experience. Third, there is no existing design guidelines for voice assistant to ask for explicit user feedback. Therefore, it is crucial for the voice assistant to act strategically. It should focus on the feedback requests that maximize system gain with minimal user experience friction. To better understand this dynamic between feedback value and experience friction, we explore design opportunities for how voice assistant could be used to empower users to leave better feedback without getting in the way of enjoyable interactions. In this paper, we present two studies that explore this topic from both system builders' perspectives and user perspectives. In the first study, we want to find what type of explicit user feedback are valuable to machine learning practitioners. We conduct a semi-structured interview study with 12 machine learning experts who work on user models and recommender systems. We derived 4 types of explicit feedback that machine learning experts value the most. The first one is clarifying users' input. When users' input is ambiguous, like the example on the right, the system needs to clarify users' request to narrow down the action space. The second type is clarifying behavioral signals. When the implicit user signals, such as user actions, are noisy. For example, the system doesn't really know why users skip a song that they liked in the past. The voice assistant should issue a request to understand user intent. Third, when introducing a new feature, it is often initially unclear what object metrics are most meaningful or reliable. The voice assistant can directly ask for user feedback on the new feature to inform the development of right metrics for the ML system. Last, machine learning experts believe that a voice assistant should also ask about user context with a consideration of user privacy. It could provide system additional information to train, to inspect, and to evaluate. However, in the interview, the machine learning experts also concerned about the trade-off between feedback request and experience friction. In the second study, we aim to explore how should we design voice interactions to collect user feedback while maintaining user engagement. We look at the 3 design dimensions of a voice assistant. Who is the voice assistant? How should the voice assistant act? And when should the voice assistant ask? We prompt each user to view the assistant in one of the three ways. Assistant, where the voice assistant helps the user with daily tasks. Learner, where the voice assistant is always learning how to better help the user with daily tasks. And collaborator, where the voice assistant collaboratively works with the user on daily tasks. These framings signal different levels of agent competency and common human-agent relationships. Different feedback prompts may induce different levels of friction, which ultimately affects the quality of user feedback. For elicitation strategy, we consider two ways the system could gather feedback from the user: asking the user for feedback through a direct question, or providing instructions for the user to provide feedback to the system. The direct question may have more chance to get users' feedback, while the instruction may be less intrusive. For the level of proactivity, we look at how closely the assistant prompts were linked to a user's input. In some scenarios, the system prompt was in direct response to a user's request, while in other scenarios, the prompts were not connected to a specific user interaction. To understand how different voices design dimensions affect feedback collection, we construct realistic scenarios based on what machine learning experts believe as most valuable. We conducted a scenario-based online study with 294 participants. We asked people's reaction to a voice assistant feedback request on their willingness to respond and the level of experience friction. We highlight some main findings in the next few slides. Please refer to our paper for the complete method and other very interesting findings. We find when the voice assistant is introduced as a learner or collaborator, people are more willing to respond to voices prompt and perceive it as less disruptive. Second, when the voice assistant prompts with an instruction instead of a question, people feel less disrupted, but there's no significant difference in the willingness to answer. And participants with more positive attitude towards a voice assistant perceive the prompts as less disruptive, easier to answer, and more acceptable to ask. What are the design implications? Based on our results, one specific design implication would be to consistently reinforce the collaborative role of the system in other interactions. The system should communicate to the user how and when the feedback is being used to improve their experience, and the improved experience is a result of collaboration. The voice assistant could also use language cues to emphasize the collaborative role, like using inclusive terminology like we and less, wherever appropriate, to reinforce a collaborative relationship. The long-term and evolving relationship provides opportunities for the elicitation strategy to adapt over time. As the user becomes more familiar with the ways the voice assistant asks for feedback, the system prompts could be adjusted. In the beginning, the user might need more verbose, detailed instructions. Then over the time, the instructions could become shorter. At some point, it might just become a user expectation that they can give feedback to improve the system capabilities. As the voice assistant becomes more reliable and intuitive through the improvement of the underlying technologies, users' attitude toward their capability will likely to improve. We find in our study that the more positive pre-existing attitude a user had toward a voice assistant, the more willing the user was to answer a voice assistant prompt, while also perceiving the disruption to be lower. This suggests it is most effective to focus on creating the best possible experience in the first interactions with the assistant and start asking for feedback later. We could also consider a foot-in-the-door approach, in which a voice assistant starts with a small, infrequent feedback request for in-system information, like clarifying user input, and asks for more later. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them during the conference, or you can always send me an email. Thank you.